You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
Welcome back to another episode of Nerd Best Friends. I am Analese, and I'm here with my best friend, Rob.
Hey, it's me, Rob, your best friend, your super nerd, and your podcast host. Nerd Best Friends can be found wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and follow us now. If you would like to support our podcast, subscribe to Nerd Best Friends on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Or if you'd like to give a one-time donation, find us at Nerd Best Friends on Venmo.
Happy New Year, nerds! It's 2024. This is episode 46, and it's time to share our nerd goals for a new year in our annual segment, 24 for 2024. But first, what I like about it.
All right, how you doing, Annalise?
I'm better. How are you?
December was a thing, huh?
Woo! We'll talk about that at some point for sure.
This week on What I Like About It, I would like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, big surprise, but specifically the
Wait, what? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Surprise, but specifically Dungeons & Dragons adventures or campaign settings where the environment is the or one of the main antagonists of the story. Classically, we have Dungeons & Dragons adventures where, you know, there's a bad guy doing something. You go into a haunted castle or an underground dungeon or a maze of caves and find things and, you know, go fight the big bad. Or sometimes there are those adventures that I like where you have that kind of Rod of Seven Parts thing where it's like, well, to defeat the bad guy, you have to collect these things, and then it takes quest, you to like different locations and you have kind of different set pieces to find those things so you can finally go fight the big bad. Sometimes the entire campaign or adventure will happen in a setting where the environment and the very setting itself is a constant struggle and it sets a tone and a vibe for the story that it's not just adventurers going out to fight an evil wizard, but it is a survival story, right? And it adds these extra layers. So I'll use, for instance, a campaign that we're running right now is Rime of the Frost Maiden. And this takes place in Icewind Dale, the far north mountain and ocean areas where the temperature is ridiculously cold, Antarctica cold at all times. That adds this layer of aesthetic to the whole thing. You know that everybody in that adventure is going to be like wrapped up in cold weather gear. You probably can't see their face. It's quiet or with white noise everywhere. There's a lot of sights and sounds and feelings that help evoke that theme in all different aspects of the adventure. Another favorite one that I've ran before, and they didn't do for 5th edition, but they had in at least for 2nd and 4th for sure. I'm trying to remember if they did 3rd. I think maybe 3rd was The World of a Dark Sun, which is a desert planet. Think like Tatooine from Star Wars, right? Okay. Just barren. And this goes into like kind of the multiverse of Dungeons and Dragons. This is either a different planet completely, or it's a post-apocalyptic setting for Dungeons and Dragons where there was a magic apocalypse and everything was destroyed, including the environment. In that one, magic itself is drawn from life force. So as the civilization and as the people became so dependent on magic for everything from light to food to energy sources to travel, they were sucking the life force out of the planet itself. And so there are no trees or plants or things left. And then, of course, the more nefarious people draw that life force from humanoids and will actually kill people and drain their life for their magic. The setting is just this hot desert, barren. Travel is different. The different creatures you interact with. There's another one that came out that I'm very excited to run, and it's been on my list, like my very next thing, but we'll see how compatible it is when 6th edition or 5.5 or whatever comes out and what they launch with. But that one takes place in a jungle, Tomb of Annihilation, and it all happens on this big island continent that is just thick rainforest jungle where, again, travel has this different aspect to it. The creatures have this different aspect to it. There's bugs and poisonous plants, and everywhere you go, there's this danger in the environment. I find that very intriguing for long-term adventures. For your one-shots, or you're like, oh yeah, we're going to get together a few times and do this adventure. Keep it straightforward, keep it simple. You don't need any complications, right? Because everybody's got a new character they're trying to do things with and come across. I think for short games, the character should be the focus. But for long games, I think it really helps set the tone and sets that feeling if the environment itself is something that the characters have to fight against.
What I like about that is, I think you've used the word tone a couple times, and I think that's the best way to describe it, because there have definitely been, in games I've been in with you, there's definitely been elemental pieces, but they're usually maybe a puzzle, like, oh, this is some slippery ice, how are you going to get around it? Or, oh, this, you've encountered this part of a dungeon in which there's some fumes of some sort, or there's, it's hard to breathe, and that becomes, again, it becomes like, who does the party send in to deal with that? Who's got resistance or immunity to something? Who can step up and do this? And that's one way to approach a game. But this, especially with Rime of the Frostmaiden, it helped determine the way the character's built. It helped determine the items that the characters carry. It helps determine, even something as simple as, we might just have to stay here one more day and get started the next morning. And that has its implications on the quest or the part of the adventure you're on. So it definitely sets, I'll say, a much darker tone. Like, there's danger with every decision you make, and you've got to choose the path with the least amount of danger as possible. But there's no path that doesn't have danger. There's no path that doesn't have trouble.
You brought something up that I hadn't been thinking about, but it is something to wonder. On my end, I think that the environment forcing those decisions or making characters choose different items or choose different decisions because of the environment, I think is very cool. Especially I'm thinking about spellcasters, right? In a run-of-the-mill game or a short-term game, they're going to choose the things that are damage doing, right? They're going to choose combat spells. But when we have this harsh environment, hopefully it is also fun to think ahead to, oh wait, there's all these other spells that exist, like purify water, detect poison, Leomund's tiny hut, like all these kind of protection or different kind of spells that can be very useful for environmental effects that hopefully helps those characters expand and like, oh, I could be useful in this other way, or oh, it's going to be really great for the party if we have drinking water and don't have to, wake up exhausted and stuff because we can't find water, clean water in this jungle.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I'm excited for that game, but also potentially playing other ones with different elements in the future. Because none of what you mentioned, especially the jungle one, you said, I don't think we've played like in a jungle, but there's definitely been games that had a heat component. There's been games that had, but not overarching, right? It's like you've entered this part of the dungeon and something's on fire, there was one of the big game with the big group. We ended up in a library, and I think Kim set the books on fire on accident, and then all of a sudden that turned into a smoke choking element where we couldn't breathe. I think one of the characters actually passed out from it, and we had to like drag them out of the room. So to have that type of component and thought for totality of a campaign is very exciting.
I think good dungeons will be built in with environmental effects like that, or environmental hazards. It does a number of things. It gives you kind of a puzzle to think about as a player. It also will many times speed up the timetable or put a timer on things, right? You can't just spend your time in this room. It's on fire. We got to hurry. We got to go. Once we get to the other side of that room, it's like, well, we just can't go back and leave anymore because that room collapsed, or it's on fire, or it's full of poisonous smoke. We got to keep going, and let's keep going now. That always helps when you're trying to move the story along, especially as we play with adult people with lives and jobs and things to do. You gotta move that plot.
Well, let's get to some nerd mail.
Nerd mail.
I heard from some listeners about Slayers on Audible, which is the multiverse Buffy the Vampire Slayer extended thing written by Amber Benson, who played Tara. I mentioned it, I think, 2 episodes ago. Yeah, not great. Everyone's kind of in agreement that the idea of a multiverse for Slayers, and in one universe. And they kind of touched on this during the series. There's an episode where they introduce Anya and Cordelia makes a wish because her and Xander, whatever, she makes a wish that Buffy had never come to Sunnydale. And they created this layered version where there's one where Buffy doesn't come to Sunnydale, and that's where you get Vampire Willow and Vampire Xander, and those characters come back at some point as part of a multiverse. So there's hints of it. So it's interesting to think that there's a universe where Buffy doesn't exist. Like, she dies early, so Cordelia is the next one up, and she becomes the Slayer, and then intertwined good ideas, just really not great writing. So it's overacted by James Marsters. It's overacted by Anthony Stewart Head. It's unfortunate. Good idea, maybe not executed as well.
Oh man, because you were pretty hot on it when you brought it up in a previous episode where you had just discovered it. You're like, I want to dive into this, but the fandom has spoken. It didn't do well.
I mean, some people love it. If you go and read reviews of it, people are all over it. And I think for me, the only thing that kept me going back to finish it was the familiarity of these characters. It was nice to hear Spike and Cordelia and even Tara. I liked Tara as a character, and while I thought the writing was brilliant, and this is a spoiler if you haven't seen Buffy, it was a brilliant storyline when she was killed, because it was a humanistic storyline, which
one
you
of
get
the
to like
most powerful episodes.
Yeah, and all around, right? Because it tests Buffy's and Willow's and everyone's. They're so used to death surrounding mystical creatures and apocalypse and reasons, and this is a human reason, and they have to deal with that in a bunch of different ways. Really, really brilliant, but I liked the character. So it's nice to hear Tara back. And what's her name that plays Drusilla? Janet, Juliet, I think is her name. Drusilla's back, who doesn't die in or doesn't disappear in one of these multiverses. And it's nice to hear all those characters. So for me, it was a little bit of nostalgia, but there were just some points where like,
would it have been more successful to get all those folks back together and just have told a story that happened in the middle of season 6 or something as an offshoot, or like find a place in the universe where these characters could have been doing something and having a different adventure as just a fun part?
I don't know if that's what the listeners who reached out to me were saying. They just were disappointed that the writing wasn't great. I can say on my end, I actually like what they did. I like what Amber Benson did with this idea of picking up right where, or a little bit after the series ends, kind of ignoring that those external seasons on comic books that go to like season 10, kind of ignoring that those exist, because the series ends where, Sunnydale's been imploded and Buffy and Willow have released the power of the Slayer to all girls who are potential Slayers. So this picks up right on that. There's a young teenager person who knows the lore about what happened in Sunnydale and knows who Buffy is and knows who Giles is, and wakes up with the power of the Slayer one day and is trying to figure out her own path and ends up meeting Spike. And so it was a really cool way to revisit those things and also to extend into what would happen in the universe, right? Sarah Michelle Gellar did not do this series. I don't know if it was intentionally that way, but it's written as if Buffy is off on vacation after years and years of being the chosen one. And she's like, everyone else is the chosen one now as well. I'm going to go live my life. So I don't mind. I don't mind where it was set. It's a little bit tighter on the writing, and it could have been a bit more successful in my opinion.
Do you feel like it was an attempt to do something in the style of Joss Whedon, or is it because it was completely different in someone else's style that it feels jarring and doesn't work?
I think it's taking bits and pieces of Joss's ideas and extending it out beyond the series. It definitely doesn't have Joss's tone. And maybe that was on purpose too.
Explain to me the statement overacting by James Marsters and Anthony Stewart Head, because I can't imagine they could chew up the scenery any harder than they always do.
Okay, so I can explain some of it, but it will be spoilers. So I'll just do.
I mean, it's mostly a joke, but I would.
No.
That's what they do.
Yes, guys. Spike is overacted all the time, anyways, right?
He's a cartoon character in many situations.
I thought about it in two ways, and I think I mentioned it also in our episode. Like, when I first started listening, it was really hard to stomach Spike. I'm like, this is way out there, but it's on purpose because he's back to infiltrating the bad areas pretending that he's a bad vampire again, when really he helps when they capture potential slayers like young teenagers and helps them escape and stuff like that. Like he's working for the good guys, but pretending to be, he's back to that whole thing. And so it's just thick with pretending to be evil, and it's extra thick done in a poor way, where what it sounded like to me is that he eventually settled into being Spike again. It took some time for him to settle back into who that character was. And for Anthony Stewart Head and Giles, you know, Giles's character was in transition when the series ended, right? He had moved back to England. He was trying to live a peaceful life. He had Willow there for a while to help her. You know, they do the analogy of detoxing from the magic and trying to, like a rehab almost. He rehabs Willow. He comes back in the series finale because the magic is so strong that he's called back to help to fight the first evil. This is written at a moment where he owns a little shop, like a bookshop or something in England, and he's sacked up with the one
kind of like mid-season or mid-campaign episode where, you know, where he had that bookshop again. Okay.
Yeah. He's just an unsettled character. So I think it also took a little while for Anthony Stewart Head to lean into it. Anthony Stewart Head he's a brilliant actor. If there's any reason to watch Ted Lasso, it's to see him play a sleazy bad guy.
Anthony Stewart Head is in Ted Lasso?
Yes, that's why I watched it.
That might be the thing that gets me.
Uh-huh. That's why I watch it. I'm like, I gotta see this. And then like it was hard to stomach my beautiful Giles, my beautiful man crush Giles being this sleazy womanizer, misogynistic, like, he's so good. He's so good.
Oh my gosh. Well, don't forget, you got to check out that Merlin BBC series with him as the King of England in it.
That would have been a good thing to do while I was really, really sick.
Oh, yeah. He's in every episode.
If you want something to listen to while you're painting Slayers on Audible, it's nice to hear the characters again. There's some moments that'll make you go, ugh.
Okay. Well, we're on a tangent now. Let's talk more about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay. Do it.
So you're reminding me, I'm just trying to reconcile this in my head, because there was definitely a huge story arc with Willow, and there was an allegory to Willow's magic and her witchcraft being like a drug, and she had to go like to detox with Giles in England. It was kind of this, this rehab moment. And when she comes back, there's a lot of situations that they get in where they're like, Willow, use your magic. And she's like, no, I don't do that anymore. Like very similar to like an alcoholic or something. They go out partying with their friends, like, oh, it's just one. You can do it. And it's like, nope, I don't do that anymore. But then at the end of that series, she's definitely using magic again, right? They're like, no, drugs are cool.
I think they did a really good job transitioning her to that moment, because if you remember, she becomes a god at the end. She becomes a goddess, right?
Kinda.
So she starts to dabble in it slowly, but she draws her lines. She draws boundaries, and that's where you get the analogy to it being like a drug addiction, right? She'll do a little bit of magic and draws a line. They hit a point in that final season, and that final season is so dark and so heavy because it's constant. We are all going to die. There's no way to face this. You know, that's where we meet Nathan Fillion
is just too powerful.
She starts to very more quickly dabble back into the witchery, the witchcraft, as they are going along this, as she realizes that they need her help. I will also say they kind of paired it weirdly with getting her another female partner in Kennedy. And Kennedy also helps, like, you're safe. This is a safe space. This is what you're meant to do. So they don't do a really good job with that in Kennedy. And a lot of people just don't like Kennedy as a character and think her matchup with Willow is really weird. But the intention of Kennedy was to really bring Willow back into, it is actually safe to do witchcraft. You're not going to lose your mind again. We're not going to let you do that. And that's hinted throughout that last season. Anyways, that's a tangent. Yeah, no.
Well, we'll equate it instead to the new science out there about using hallucinogenics and things like LSD in a therapy setting to help people deal with trauma. We'll draw that line instead for our Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Well, I will say the line is drawn in that Willow gets into the bad side of magic, the black magic, as a reaction to Tara's death, and that actually opened the door for the stuff that happened the next season.
So it's not heroin; it's the black tar heroin.
Yeah, it's the really bad stuff. All right, well, let's get into our episode, Rob.
All right, if we have to.
Here we are. It's 2024.
It's 2024.
2024 is 10 days old.
2024 took drug me in. I was not ready. Things
2023
to
was a
do.
blur. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree
especially
with
the
you.
end. Especially the end. But oh yeah, if you're skipping around, but a couple episodes ago, our last episode was late because of
Yes.
just insane winter colds that both of us got that took us out for like
Yeah.
10 days, just laid out at
It was
different
crazy.
times. So really it was like end of November through December. Either one of us were wrecked.
Just out for the count. And it was bad cold stuff floating around up here in Northern California. And then it started turning into COVID, which luckily I didn't get COVID, but a lot of my staff did.
I might not be out of the woods yet. It's been just enough time where it's like, okay, I'm feeling good. Time for the next one to attack me because we're the same way at work. People
Hopefully
are just
not.
out
Hopefully
and
not.
in and out. So we had nerd goals. We just did our Trello boards that we like to do every year. And I wouldn't say this was a bad year, but it was challenging in a lot of ways.
I mean, if I had to use a word, I would say it was a bad year for me, but
I'm sorry.
that's only because I really
What?
I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't a bad year. And there was a lot of great things that happened in 2023 and a lot of chances to do really nerdy things. I mean, in July, we were in Vegas playing D&D in an executive room, overlooking the entire strip. Like, there's some really nerdy things this year. But in terms of my Trello board, not a lot of movement for me.
Let's go to that since we're talking about the challenges and the difficulties. Why don't you start about your summary of your nerdy hobbies, your Trello board, your goals, overall, how to go?
Yeah, I thought I had a good set of goals, and I think both of us actually put more than 23 on just in case our ideas and thoughts change throughout the year. But the best way I can describe it is this was just the year of nope for me. Nope, can't do it. Nope,
like the horror movie, Nope.
Well, I haven't seen it, but maybe.
I
don't know.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. So it was just a lot of nope. And some of that is, I did move to the other side of the state. So there's a handful of months and our move was a little bit wonky. The rental market out here in Ukiah is very small. So when we found a place we wanted to live in, we had to start renting way before the move, April, right? Yeah. So we moved Sarah and 99% of our stuff in early May. And then I stayed in our apartment in Santa Barbara with just a minimal amount of things. And I did actually keep behind, I left some games behind. I left my paint stuff behind, but I also didn't have any furniture and I didn't have, I was never.
So you didn't want to be home.
No.
Yeah.
And so I hardly was home. I was hanging out with you a lot and
Shameful.
Staying at work and going out to dinner and just all those things. So there was from May to June when I was living in an apartment and then I moved in June, I didn't get anything done. And then there was a few months here where we were just settling in and I had stuff out, but not really ready. I think it was 4 months before I actually painted.
Wow.
So, new job, moving across the state, there was just a lot of barriers for me. And being a new principal also for me meant it's going to feel like being a new teacher again, where I'm just constantly going to be overwhelmed and exhausted. And so there came a point oh, okay, I actually got to go home before, 7 p.m. today.
Yikes.
What am I going to do? And I would sit there and go, well, I could go paint. I could go play a game. I could read. And then by the time I'm thinking through my options, I fell asleep. So there was just a lot. Just not a lot of time for hobbies. And when there was time, I had trouble clamping onto one and doing one. So that was basically my 2023. I think I started everything. I didn't finish very much of it. I usually read 12 books a year. That's my Goodreads goal. I read 2 and I have a stack on my bedside of 4 or 5 books that I'm bookmarked in that I haven't finished. So it's a lot of that for my hobbies this year. And that's how my 2023 went. What about yours?
Well, I definitely focused on hobby things and fun, projects and stuff that I wanted to do. And yes, I had a ton of things on my list. Is any idea of something I wanted to finish or something I wanted to do came up, I'd put it on this list and there were probably 50 something things on there. This has been a problem before where there's kind of a paralysis of choice, but it's different in the sense that it's it's not necessarily a paralysis of choice. It's more of well, no matter what I do, it's going to be on that board. So I'll just kind of ADD over to this one and ADD over to this one. And then new things come up and it's just add it to the board. I can add anything on there. There's 50 something things on there kind of thing, which is fine as long as you finish, right? But at some point I was doing the beginning of the year, came in, just like a bulldozer. I was getting stuff done. I had great great momentum from the end of the year before, finished some good projects, was doing a lot of cool 3D printing projects. Last year, you remember I had gotten my Prusa printer and it just works like a dream, and a bunch of cool Kickstarters that I had backed for 3D printed terrain and things had come in. And I'm looking at the board back from, the beginning of the year, and it's like, oh man, that was a fun project. Oh, that was a really cool project, and had a lot of momentum there. Things were getting done. And I like those projects because they're always used for a game, right? It's like, okay, I made this thing and I'm going to go put it on the table, and it's going to be great, right? The City of Morsane, or, the castle, blah, 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 the Hero Quest board, right? All that happened.
Oh gosh, yes.
In the first half of this year, and it was awesome. And then somewhere down the line, I said, and I'm sure I said it on the show, man, I think I'm on track to paint 365 miniatures this year. And once that was breathed into the world, it just became this thing of like, well, that's what I have to do now. And that took over everything. That is, the second half of 2023 was just painting miniatures. It's interesting because we talk about like, well, why do you like painting miniatures so much? Like it's kind of samey, right? Like it's very quiet. It's very personal. And that's why I like it. It's something I do to just reset and relax and get my head kind of thinking sometimes. There are some times where I get all set up and it's like, I've got a ball game on the TV and I've got a YouTube tutorial on the screen with my earphones, or I've got music on and blah, 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 blah. And I've got snacks and I'm just going to sit here and do this thing. But a lot of times it's like after work for an hour, hour and a half, just quiet way to end my day, kind of de-stress, be productive, but also just be calm and quiet and relaxing. And so I think we were joking a couple of weeks ago. It's like, man, this must have been a really stressful year because I painted 365 freaking miniatures. I must have needed a lot of quiet reflection time. Yeah, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I did want to get that done. Yeah, I did want to get that done. Yeah, I did want to get that done. I got a lot of minis painted.
365 that you completed should count for like 3 of your 2023 goals, honestly.
It did help in some ways because there was a lot of things that would get finished, right? I was strategic about, in the past, I talked about a lot of times like, oh, I'll get a new game. What do I need to play the first dungeon, or what do I need to get started? And I'll grab those 9 or 12 minis out, paint those, play the game, put it away, do that with another one. So I had set a goal for myself of like, finish painting this complete box, finish completing this complete box. And those were on there. So that those worked together. I would not have gotten to 23 had I not had those kind of things aligned. As far as like, no, finish painting the Wrath of a Chardalon box, finish painting your set of Next Level Mini. Those things were on there. So that helped. But that's all that's on there.
Yeah, it's all mini painting. I mean, some of that was driven by the Morsane stuff, right? Some of that was driven for the fact that you painted so many things.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
That's where the idea came in your head. Because I painted an entire city of like villagers and stuff and got like 50 minis done in those like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, oh my gosh,
I'm on pace for this.
100 days this year and I've painted 125 minis. I could totally do this. And, oh boy.
That's good though.
It is.
And also, I'm just going to say it's amazing that you could finish 365 minis in a year and still have more minis that you can paint.
Amazing is one word.
I like amazing. I'll take amazing. Well, how about?
But I don't want to feel bad about it. Like it was a challenging year for both of us, but there were some high points, right?
Absolutely. Like I actually achieved the goal. One of my goals was to play Final Girl or Dark Tower 12 times. I thought if I played one of those two once a month, that would be fun. And that it's never the way it works out. Come October, and it was Halloween season, and I was in spooky mood. I took out Final Girl and I played like 3 or 4 games in a row. And then, expansion for Dark Tower came. I busted it out and played a couple of games. And then end of the year came, and I'm not a paid advertiser, but man, Van Ryder Games really knocked it out of the park with what they did with their Kickstarter campaign. They're the company that has produced Final Girl, all 3 series, in secret for probably about a year. They created and did the artwork and got the sample and got in production for a special Christmas episode, if you will, called North Pole Nightmare, where you can play Mrs. Claus or an elf against Krampus. And they made it so when
it's Mrs. Claus?
You can play Mrs. Claus.
Is the final girl? That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. It is so fun. And Krampus drops presents, and some of them might be from Santa. And sometimes there's little elves that run around and open the gift. So then you have to see if it's a good gift or a bad gift. And they did all of this in secret because when the Series 3 came out, they announced it and said, Series 3 is not going to come out for another year or more. But this one's in production now. They took a gamble that they were going to raise as much money as they did from Series 2, which was really over $2 million, and said, we're going to send this out. And the level that we send it out at is going to depend on how this Kickstarter does. So, MSRP is for like $25. I bought it for $5. If they hadn't raised over $2 million, that would have been free for everybody at a certain level of the Kickstarter. And I got it, mid-December. Primered the minis, painted the minis, got it all ready so that during winter break, I played a couple games. So that big tangent to say, it was never one a month, but bulks and pieces of I'm going to knock out 3 or 4 games. That's kind of how 2023 went for me.
Fits and starts or? Yeah.
Bits and pieces. Yeah. Shucking and jiving. How about some high points? We both struggled a little bit with our nerd goals this year. What are some high points for you?
I will tell you, number one on my list was the Hero Quest board. That was an incredible project. Not only did it turn out exactly how I dreamed it would in my head, but it led to a lot of gaming. It led to a regular-ish, as regular as we could make it, game schedule with you and the family, playing through the adventures and doing the thing. I'm real proud of that board. It took a lot of dedication. It took work. It took problem solving. It took a lot of painting. I'll use it. It's funny because, in education, we go to a lot of meetings and they waste a lot of time doing stupid, icebreakers of what's a fun thing you did, or what's something unique about yourself, or what's an interesting fact about blah, 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 blah. I use this board. I'm I recreated the 1984 Hero Quest game on a 3x4 3D printed, fully painted magnetic modular board. That's the interesting fact.
And they go, wow, you're a nerd.
They sure do.
I love it.
I look them right in the eye and go, you couldn't have done it.
Nope. You wouldn't have gone onto the black market to get magnets that were outlawed.
To get outlawed child endangerment magnets so you could have finished this board. Yeah, have fun with your golf game, whatever.
No, the Hero Quest board is beautiful. It came out so phenomenal. It really brought that game to life. And I know we have a few more scenarios to work through. So next time I'm in town, we should bust it out and play through a few more scenarios.
We do. I think that's just going to be the way that it is we're going to look ahead, and whenever we get a chance, once or twice a year, it's put it on the list. What do we do? Well, we're going to visit this place. We're going to visit this place, and we're going to play Hero Quest for 2 hours.
Yes.
We'll get it done.
What else was a highlight for you?
Another thing that I started doing that I got really excited about was rereading through the Dragonlance books from when I was a kid. I talked about those because the new series came out. Book 1 last year, book 2 this year, and book 3 at the end of this year. And I did finish that, and that was really fun. It got me excited about the nostalgia and reading those books. I actually got another friend of ours, guest of the show, Adam. I was telling him about that project, and so he went and read the old 80s and 90s Dragonlance books and got excited about that. It inspired me to do Dragonlance mini campaign in our Monday night game. Finished all of that. I was glad I did. I enjoyed those authors, and it's a fun world just for me. It hits all the marks for me. And then of course another big thing that was on there was because we had seen it, I knew we only had a few more adventures left coming into 2023. One of the things on my board was finish the More Sane campaign with a bang, and we absolutely did that, and that was incredible. That's
a highlight of the year for sure.
That Trello board of finish the Outcast of More Sane game led to the Trello card of print the town, paint the minis, write the adventure, all of those kind of cool things as well. That was for sure a highlight. That is one thing. 2023, if I had to think about it, it's Hero Quest, and it was that Vegas game. And those were big highs. Those will last the whole year, and probably 2024 too. It's those were two real big nerd goals. The last one I have on my highlights list then is RPG Kids, is a game I picked up years and years ago. Actually, when Andrew was pretty young, but he wasn't quite young enough. If you guys know Andrew, listen to the Andrew episodes. He's real into it. So we just played regular D&D when he was a kid. I think we started playing 5th edition with him full out when he was 8. I mean, he just picked it up. He absorbed the rules and just loved every part of it. So I didn't have a chance to use it, but I do have a nephew who is 7 years old in 2023. And it was this will be perfect. And I'm going to paint up custom minis, and I'm going to use this little adventure set. It was One, super fun. It's a great little game of mechanics. It was my nephew's first time playing that RPG after he had been, he comes over and visits and walks through the nerd room and looks at the shelves and the display cases and like, when am I going to get to play D&D? And I'm like, this year's the year, buddy. And so
it is time.
We made this whole adventure for him and stuff. And we played. I've got pictures of him just all cute, leaning over the 3D board and moving his minis and stuff. And he really enjoyed it. He went immediately home and started making characters and drawing pictures and wanting to make his own adventure and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big highlight as well. So yes, even though at the end of 2023, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this was a challenge getting through these boards. When I think about it, like there were some real strong, high nerd moments for me this year.
Yes. You mentioned them. So I will say, getting to play Hero Quest for me started with our nerd gift giving episode like 2 seasons ago where you said, oh, I missed it for this. And Maria went out and found it for you. Yeah. Starting from that to the point when you had it on the table and I got to come over and play, for me was also a high point. It was kind of like a culmination, and it like sweetly also matched with like the culmination of me living in the same town as you, because that hasn't been the thing for a lot of our adulthood. So to come over and play that a bunch of times before moving was definitely a high point. And obviously the finishing that level 1 through 20, me not being aware how special that was, the further away we get from it, the more I'm realizing how unique that was and how we really just, for me, it was fun planning that trip and getting everybody in one place and making that happen. And that was definitely a high point. But you had mentioned them, so I didn't put them on my list.
The Hero Quest game was the Marvel movies of 2022, right? Was it 2022
you're right.
Where we decided to do all the Marvel movies and you came over like every Friday night and we'd have dinner and drinks and then watch a Marvel movie?
That was like 2019 when I first moved back to town. And I let you and Andrew know that like at that point, Endgame had already come out, I believe, or it was just about to come out. I can't remember which, but I had only seen Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. And you both went, what? So that's when when I first moved back that summer, and then going into until we hit the pandemic every Friday. Was it Friday? Every Saturday? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was Friday.
Yeah. I would come over, we'd have dinner, we'd knock out a movie and then talk about it. And then, we did a whole schedule to get me caught up. And then the pandemic hit. That was fun. We were supposed to do it for Star Wars and Harry Potter too, but the pandemic hit and we had to
That's right. We had different genres on there and then that fell apart. But then it picked up again and it was Hero Quest, right? It was, all right,
exactly.
Every other week, we've got a regular game and that was awesome.
I will say another high point for me with the move is getting to set up a new nerd room. And I know we've talked about like maxing it out with the LED lights, and I had a lot of fun designing that. And which something I've never done before in my life is measure out the room and look at the dimensions on IKEA for the Kallax boxes. That was a high point of setting this up and actually how functional it is when I get to play games. Once it was all set up and I had my little folding table that I bring in and out, setting up the games was super easy and I had fun playing it. So when I finally got to play Final Girl and I had these LED lights and all the red was up and I have my little sound bar, so I played scary music through it, and I can just create the total atmosphere here in this game room based on the game I'm playing, and that's so much fun. And sometimes, I have a small television in here and I can put on the 49ers game and I'm painting or even just doing work for work while I'm here in the nerd room. It's turned out to be a really great space, and this is the best nerd room that I've had since I've been able to have one.
I wonder if I should get a sound bar for my TV in the game room. I don't use the TV very much.
But you use the Apple TV, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the TV's going, but a lot of times I have my earbuds in.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm doing stuff back here.
I do that sometimes too. For me, my ears get a little tweaked when I have the earbuds in too long. So I can close the door and turn on. I say sound bar, but it's like yay big. It's just like a little square. Oh. It's a Bose speaker that can be used indoors and outdoors. It's really nice. It was like $100. I turn that on when I play the scary music, or sometimes I'll attach it to I don't have an Apple TV in here, but I have a little thing that came with my Xfinity internet. It's like a box like Apple TV, but I can plug my little sound speaker into that and I'll play I'm playing a movie or something, or just live TV or a game like a football game while I'm doing other stuff. I'll do that instead of the earbuds. It just depends. I do a little bit of both. I got a little scared using my earbuds first playing Final Girl because there's some really spooky music. There's some really spooky playlists on Apple Music and Spotify and stuff. And at one point I got really tweaked. I'm like, I'm just going to put this on the speaker instead. So I can
and all the like binaural, like something's over your shoulder
exactly.
and everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like turning over a card and I'm murdering 3 people. And like, it got a little spooky for me. So the soundbar helps sometimes. The only other thing I want to mention as a highlight is that when we first moved here, you and Andrew came, you helped us out a lot by driving a car up, one of our cars up. And my sister brought my nieces over, and I played a lot of games when people came to visit over the summer. So that was fun, getting to pull out some of the family-friendly games with my family and playing Mansions of Madness with you and Andrew. And I can't remember what else we played when you guys were here, but
definitely Mansions of Madness. That game, that game rules.
Yeah, that game is so good. It's great as a solo game too. It's so good. And I have one of the expansions, and I was hoping for another one for Christmas. Didn't happen, but I'm going to look for the other 2 expansions. It's just such a good game. But being able to play with everybody when they came to visit was a lot of fun. And my stepkids came to visit. We played games with them. So we definitely, having the nerd room maxed out and everything available the way it is and the way it got set up meant like, oh yeah, let's play Scrabble. All right. Just even simple games like that. And the 7 Dragons is a big hit with my stepkids. I played the Scream game with them based off of the movie. A lot of highlights like that. That was really fun once we got the nerd room set up. So those are my highlights.
Very cool. I'm glad that both of our highlights included like other people. Like we do a lot of our nerdy hobbies for these games. And the point of that is to make those connections and spend time with other people playing games. Because I think we both value that. Yes. But what about some low points?
I think you did you say paralysis?
I did say decision paralysis.
Decision paralysis. That's a very lovely way. From when I started the new school year as a new principal through December, I struggled a lot with what I called decision fatigue. And I think that's when I said before, like I just couldn't focus. I felt like I couldn't focus enough on something when I had an hour of time. I think really what it came down to is by the time I got home, the decision fatigue was so high that I couldn't make a decision to read or to paint or to take out a game. All of it felt so exhausting to try to determine what it is I wanted to do, and I would end up just napping or opening up my laptop and doing work so that the next day wasn't as hard. So the low point for me was, and I say low point, right? It was really exciting. All kinds of really great things at my new school. I'm very happy where I landed professionally, and getting to lead a school is just it feels so natural to me that most days it doesn't feel like I'm working, but there definitely comes that decision fatigue point. I remember seeing my principal, who was a new principal my last year at my last school. I would see those moments, and he did a really good job of getting to a point to say, hey, I'm going to listen to what you have to say, but I'm not going to be able to make a decision on it. And like, I'm feeling those things coming to that moment and being able to say, oh, let me intake, but we're not going to come to decision until tomorrow. Right. Yeah. Like, and then I get home and it's like, what do we want for dinner? Or, what do
there's always those choices.
Do the dishes. Yeah. And it just, that decision fatigue, or as you called it, paralysis, for me was really hard. And I think we're both, kind of A-type personalities. We want to achieve our goals and get stuff done. And that's a lot of thing we attribute to marching band and whatnot. It was really hard to not beat myself up. Like, why can't you finish this stupid book by Stephen King you've been so excited to read since you heard about it a year ago, right? Like, it was really, really tough to be in a place that I couldn't decide, and also was mad that I couldn't decide. It was tough to go through this year.
Yeah, stress is real, and it has absolute effects. I definitely had those, a lot of stress and things last year, which was my first year at a new kind of management position.
Yeah.
It took the form of me, like I could plow through the day and keep making my decisions, but then I wouldn't sleep. And there were a lot of times at that new job where it was just this cycle of exhaustion and making maybe poor decisions or working slow, that idea of diminishing returns. Like, oh, I could keep working for another 2 hours, but if I was wise enough to stop, I could get that 2 hours of work done in half an hour tomorrow with a good night's sleep kind of thing. I was at a conference in late 2023, and it was a tech conference. It was a mental health session and stuff, and people sharing stories of that exact thing, of that executive, like even like regular executive functions. I've made so many decisions that I go in the bathroom at the end of the night and I'm staring at myself in the mirror because I didn't remember I came in here to brush my teeth.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
And Many of us have felt that. We actually were going through it with Andrew, not to tell a story that's his and not mine, but at the end of the year when he was struggling with finishing up his first semester of high school with some challenging science and math classes, and he was involved in 4 shows, and he was trying to run D&D games on the weekends and those kinds of things. He had those moments of just zoning out or just that paralysis of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now because I have to be doing so many things right now. So it's a good reminder. You know, part of the reason we have these nerdy hobbies is to break that stress. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be relaxing. And it's supposed to remind us to take time with our family, friends, our loved ones to do wholesome things together. So it's good that you bring it up, and it's good to talk about, you know, those struggles that we go with.
Yeah.
And remind all of our nerds, like, we're doing this for our mental health. Really, I think it's a great way to balance. I know that there's like, I'm not a workaholic. Right. I'm a playaholic. And the reason is because I enjoy this stuff so much, and I prioritize making time in my day for doing these hobbies that I love and spending time with my friends, family, and loved ones, playing games and running adventures and having imagination space and stuff like that. I recommend it.
You are correct. If I use the term low point, that's kind of a low point when I was in those, like, can't make the decision. Why can't I make the decision? Why can't you do, like, when I was in the middle of all of that was really rough, because there were span of months that I did nothing on my nerd goal list at all. Mm-hmm. But what about you? You have a kind of a low point to 2023?
You know, I love looking at stats and numbers and graphs and charts. And so I do have some areas where the performance review went down. And one of those numbers is games played. So in 2022, thanks to Board Game Stats app, I know that I played 144 games in 2022, which is great. Like, I'm riding high. That was a good year. This year's still good. We played 105 games this year. So that's about 40 days during a 365-day year. But that's 40 instances of sitting with friends and family and playing games that didn't happen the next year. And that seems like a lot. That seems like a lot of time, like we're talking about, for those connections and that fun and that, you know, whatever. A lot of that is because of my stupid idea of trying to paint 365 adventures. Like, I spent that time. There's definitely times where it's like, you look at the game table and you're like, all right, I've been painting a ton. There's stuff on there, but what I'd rather do this weekend is set up a game and get everybody to play. And instead it was like, nope, gotta cram through. Where's the next stuff? Where's the next thing to get that done? So I think that affected it a little bit. It also affected the amount of games that I played. So for instance, in 2022, I played 28 different games. And in 2023, I played 23 different games, which is still, like, it's not that far away, but it is. I know, again, because of the stats that I keep on this app and stuff, the majority of those games actually were D&D games run by our friend Michael, Dungeon Master Michael. That dude is consistent. He runs his game every Tuesday, and we meet with him every Saturday, and he's consistent. He's young, he's in college, he's got a great work schedule that allows us to play this game with his friends. Everybody shows up. If it weren't for him, that number would be another 40 fewer.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's a game where I'm a player. I can, like, as long as I block it on my calendar, like, I can roll up, we can play, have a good time. So I'm very thankful. That is not something that I've always had in my life, right? They always joke, you see the memes and stuff online of, like, the forever DM. Like, I was the forever DM for 20 something years. But so having people step up, like Michael, like Andrew is running a game for us now, like, it gives a lot of space to breathe and be able to play and enjoy, but not have to always be in charge and make all those decisions and do all that planning for everything. Yeah. So things are a little bit, you know, the numbers are a little bit lower. We didn't meet our fourth quarter goals of,
look at you using your management speak.
For the most part, vastly, the goods outweigh the bad. The amazing events and games that we had this year are far surpassed the idea of, like, well, we didn't do everything we wanted to do. And certainly we didn't. Like, there are games that I got for Christmas a year ago that are still in the shrink wrap that I didn't play.
Yikes.
And it's like, I might want to reprioritize and play some more games, spend some more time with people. Than not.
I would imagine you're not going to repeat the 365 minis moving forward, so maybe that'll allow you to shift shift your time?
No, that was a bad idea. Now that I've done it, but it is something I can say I've done, right?
Yeah,
I can
sure.
say like there was a year where I painted 365 miniatures, a miniature for every day of the year. Like I can say that now, check it off the list, throw it away.
Never
I never
do it
need to
again.
do that again.
Well, that takes us into the new year, Rob. Now that we're in 2024, what are some of the things that are same or different for you on your 24 for 24?
Before we go on to the next section and how we set up our goals, this is the third time we've talked about our Trello board. Some listeners may not have listened to every episode of the Nerd Best Friends podcast. So maybe we stop right here and just give a little context of what we're talking about as far as our boards and our goals and our projects. So what we do, and it was an idea that I stole from a podcast called The Happiness Podcast back in 2018, where they talked about setting, instead of New Year's resolutions, come up with New Year's projects or New Year's things that you want to do in the new year. The idea of a New Year's resolution is almost always subtractive or almost always punishing, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna lose weight or I'm gonna throw things out. It's always like it's usually a chore or some kind of habit you're trying to change that is going to struggle. Instead, it was, oh, okay, we're going to choose 19 things, 19 for 19. In 2019, I'm going to come up with 19 super fun things that I'm going to do and work through those for the years. And so that's where it started. And we came up, so 20 for 20, 21 for 21, 22 for 22, etc. And we use Trello, which is a project management platform to keep track of these things. So historically, the way we set it up is just 3 columns, right? Fun ideas. We're going to stick 24 things on there or more. I like to put more because I, usually have a choice, or I keep thinking of ideas that are better than something else that was on there. Like a pending section where we move stuff over that we're working on, which also for me helps me focus on like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Oh yeah, that I haven't touched that in a few weeks. Let me, build that back up so I can move it to the third column, which is complete, or mine says mission accomplished. And so we track that and we try to get this year 24 things over to the mission accomplished section by the end of the year. As we're going through this and we're talking about our goals and we're talking about, the board, that's how we do it. And I like the board because you can put sub checklists on it. Some projects are bigger. I always slap a picture on it when I finish the thing. I pop a picture on the card because then when I go back over the years, it's a great visual reminder for me of like, oh yeah, I made that. Oh yeah, we did that. Oh yeah, that was cool. Right. That's where we're talking about. And as far as going into 24, I'm going to make a lot of changes. One thing that we did, my wife Maria and I keep our 2023 board, all of our boards are shared, right? So we have her stuff and my stuff. And we had the idea of, okay, this year, let's put more columns on the board because like I mentioned, I like to just throw everything I can on there. Sure. And she's like, this is too much. I can't find my stuff. Right. So we had 2 separate columns on the board, one for me and one for her.
Oh, okay.
And
like
so
Rob's list
when
and
she
Maria's
was
list.
looking for her, exactly, Rob's ideas, Maria's ideas, so that she didn't have to look through my giant list of junk to find her stuff, even though it's all color coordinated and assigned. And another idea that she had as she was listening to project books and goal setting things was, let's break it up into 4. So we had a quarter 1, quarter 2. So we call it first 12 weeks, second 12 weeks, third 12 weeks. And the idea being that it would help be inspiring to look quarterly of like, okay, here are like the 3 things I started or the 6 things I started in these first 12 weeks. There should be motivation to finish those by this arbitrary kind of, by this first quarter. And then anything that you push through and you did move to mission accomplished, and anything that was still there, you just move over to the second 12 week column. And it seemed like a great idea. So we set it up like that with the quarters and everything. It didn't work for me. The timeline didn't line up with other things going on. It didn't line up with different holidays or vacations. It didn't line up with free time and things like that. So it only made it feel like, oh, wait, when was the last 12 weeks? Oh, that was 3 weeks ago. This didn't help me do anything. Now I just feel bad because I didn't get stuff done the first quarter and I'm just moving it all over to the second quarter and that kind of thing. So when I look at the board, I have mission accomplished first quarter, mission accomplished second quarter, mission accomplished third quarter. And it's like almost depressing where it's like, oh man, that first quarter, I got 8 things done. Second quarter, I got, 7 things done. Third quarter, I got 2 things done. Fourth quarter, I got 1 million things done because I was cramming through to the end of the it didn't help me at all. Sure. And looking at the board and what Maria got done, it didn't help her her at all.
Mm.
So I won't do that again. And in
Yeah.
fact, we might even keep separate boards this year, just because I have so many different things on there, and it's got all these subjects. I don't know if it's gotten too, not confusing, but just busy with both of our things on the list at the same time, or if it just seems that way because we have so many columns right now that it's a little bit cluttered. So I might go back to simplifying that.
You all started in like 2018 with 18 things, and now we're at 24 with 24 things. So that's 48 things.
Minimum
on one. Minimum.
For both of
so
us.
I can see that being a thing. And then the quarterly thing, it's interesting you say it didn't help Maria, because that was going to be a question I had, because you and I live by the school year. And going school year versus calendar year, or the school fiscal year versus calendar year, is always troublesome.
That might be the way to do it, is like, what am I going to get done by fall break? And then another section to spring break, and then another section
Winter
to
break.
summer. And then another section to the start of the school year, just because that would line up a little bit more with when I know I can get projects done and when I know I can't, right?
Right, exactly. There's some of those months in there in the school year that, like November, maybe if you have a few days off around Thanksgiving, you might be able to get some stuff done.
So that's
October,
something that I would change. And I've got another thing on my list, but I've been talking for a long time, so I'm going to throw it back to you. What is something that maybe you would change for this coming year?
So some things I did change for this year is to not, I know the idea and the premise behind this is that we're choosing fun things that we do. I don't know. My partner would probably call me a workaholic. Our work is very involved. And when you hit management level, there's not a clock in, clock out time. That's just the way education is. You and I both were totally workaholics working together in a marching band situation, because I used to explain to people like, I'd have Mondays and Thursdays were either drumline or color guard, or both would be rehearsing. And I'd have to be there, even though I had a coach to, drumline coach and color guard coach. Tuesdays would be like sectionals or something else. Wednesdays would be Wednesday night rehearsal. Friday would be Friday night football games, either home or away. Saturday we'd have parades or competitions. And then Sunday we'd all be at your house eating some food, watching NASCAR, and then looking at like our score sheets and talking about what we're going to do the next week. 7-day-a-week job. All the time, even though it was fun, it was workaholic. So I had to kind of reel that back in and say some of my professional goals should absolutely be on it, because I enjoy my job. And it's not the slog stuff. I'm not putting on there like, I'm going to be on time every Friday with my Friday family. Like, no, that's stuff that are a must do, but I do have some professional goals. Like I want to present more. I did present at 3 or 4 different conferences in 2023. I don't know if I'll get to do as many in 2024, but I can put a goal in there that I'm going to present at 2 conferences. That's a professional goal of something I enjoy to do. Things along those lines. So I did incorporate some work-oriented goals in my 2024 list, which is something I hadn't done yet. And also that number 24 gets kind of daunting, right? And so I wanted to scale away from the numerical aspect of it. Although I did watch like 23, instead of new things, I did like episodes, right? So I started watching True Blood at the end of 2023 because I like horror genre. It was one I ignored for a long time. So I counted like one season was 13 episodes. It's 13 of the 23 things. I scaled back the numerical and I continued with that. It wasn't read 24 new books or comics. It was complete my Goodreads goal. It's not, that was one thing I did, but the big change for 2024 was incorporating some professional goals. In 2022 and 2023, I had on there like, oh, you're going to take 3 trips. And I counted conferences as those because to me, that's a trip. I packed my bag. I got on an airplane. I went to a thing. Some of it was work. And when that conference was over, maybe I went to a barcade and did something for myself. Right. So I counted some of those. And so if I'm counting that anyways, then why wouldn't I incorporate some professional goals with my fun goals? Because I enjoy my profession. It's fun for me. Okay. So that's one thing that I changed for 2024. Truth be told, I have not hit every goal in the 3 years since 2021 was the first year I did it. 21, 22, 23, I did not finish all the goals. And so for me, the overarching goal for me in 2024 is to hit 24 goals. So in order to do that, I did make a shift. I will say kind of a little bit on something you said. The way I set up my board is that I have the like, let's do this column. I have the doing it column.
Mhm.
That's the stuff that's in progress. I have the been done column, and then I have a wish list. And that's kind of how I organized it. I had stuff that wasn't on the original 24 list on the wish list that I could swap out.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. So when you make the list, you're really prioritizing
Yes.
those 24 things that are kind of
Right.
must-dos. And then the other things, that's interesting because that would help you focus on like, well, what am I going to sacrifice to put a wish list on a
Or
item
like
on there?
when something else came along that I was more excited for than
Mhm.
playing Dark Tower or whatever it might be, I could swap those out, or I can say, oh, I also wanted to do this. I can add that. So instead of play Dark Tower 12 times, it's Dark Tower or Mansions of Madness. So I kept that wish list to help inform as the year went along.
But just the very act of switching means, okay, I'm trading this for
Yes.
this. I wonder
Yes.
if that is inspiring to get some things done or if that is unfun. Like, will be unfun for me if I just do that. Be like, oh, well, look at look at this bad decision I'm making. I was like, well, I was going to take 24 hikes, but instead I want to throw that away and start a new Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Like,
Yeah,
but
that is what it is, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's a choice you're making. You mentioned earlier about playing more games with friends and family, so got him.
Oh my God,
That's not necessarily a negative thing. The only other thing I did that I started last year was really helpful is I actually numbered the things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they weren't in priority order. It just helped me between the cards. I kept them in numerical order. Number 1, it's not the number 1, but it's, complete my Goodreads goal. Number 2 is complete my mini painting goal. Number 3 is study 24 hours of Spanish. I have a lifetime Rosetta Stone. So I put a number on the card. So then my wish list is unnumbered. So then I can swap that way as well. And then I can keep track of 24 things that I am either actively working on, have finished, or need to decide whether or not am I going to do this year. One of them from 2023 was to fix my bike and ride it 10 times or something. But I gave the bike away when I moved. So I had to take that, put it back on the wish list and exchange it with something else. So that's kind of how I changed for 2024.
Another thing, and I know we joked about it last year, is I had all kinds of fun hobby ideas and projects and stuff. And I was like, and looking at the list at this time last year, I was like, man, there is nothing on here about being healthy or spending time with people or doing anything. And I'm like, maybe I should have. Maybe there should have been some exercise or healthy, mindful eating goals or something like that, because it was a pretty lazy year for me. And we live in California. It's beautiful, whether you're in Northern California and there's a million hikes and rivers and beautiful places to see, or you're where I'm at, where there's a beach and there's a million beautiful things to do. Like, I need to get outside more and take advantage of my ambulatoriness and the beautiful weather and stuff that we live in, because I'm only getting older and there's no reason why I shouldn't be more out and about in the sunshine, in the fresh air, taking advantage of those kinds of things. So I will be including more health and well-being outside of the hobby.
Nice. I mean, hiking is it's an easy thing. You put on your shoes and go walking.
It is. It's just a time thing. It's just looking at, do I want to watch football and paint miniatures today, or do I want to go play outside? It's one of those things. And, we always, through parenting young kids, it's always like, oh, let's go outside. Oh, you need some sunshine. Oh, let's get some fresh air. You can't just be sitting around the house all the time. And now that, I'm looking back this year, I'm like, I basically just sat around the house.
Yeah.
So we'll improve on that. Another thing that I want to do is just be more involved in the Nerd Best Friends offerings and creation and things like that. When we started talking about the season, I was like, I want to make sure that I've got all the social media stuff, because I had in 2022, one of the goals I had was to post more and share more of the things that I'm doing. So I was posting on Instagram every week of like, oh, here's the project I finished today, or here's the minis I painted today, or here's a picture of the game we played this week. And I was involved in a lot of different Facebook groups for all of those things. So it's like, oh, I printed this from this company. I'm going to go on that Facebook group and share my work. Oh, we played this D&D adventure. I'm going to go to that Facebook group and share what we did. And I got pretty good at that in 2022. 2023, I was like, I don't like this anymore. Like, I don't like what I'm seeing on social media. Like, it seems like a chore to me. I don't want to do it. When we started the season, I was like, oh, you know what? Let us make sure all the logins are going to, I've got everything. I'm going to just switch over and like not be logged into my Instagram, my Twitter, my whatever. I'm just going to log in as Nerd Best Friends, and that's where I'll share stuff. And I didn't do it. It was just something that I wasn't enjoying. But that is something looking forward to this year. I'm like, no, I'd like to, like, I'm not sharing anymore. There is an extra little bit of like, no, look at all this cool stuff I did, it would inspire other people, or like it gives people ideas and things like that. And it grows like that community outside of, my little bubble. So like if I could maybe engaging listeners and people who the podcast is involved with will help me find more value in that again. And so that's something else I want to do.
And I threw on, we need to start on the Discord stuff. But for me as a goal, like I need to understand it and learn how to use it. That's our next step as a podcast as well. A goal of growing our Patreon subscribers, all of that is real and continuing. So it's on my board as well.
And then speaking of growing, like I love getting new stuff. I love doing these projects. I love 3D printing and building and stuff. But eventually these walls are going to cave in on me. Like I have to be responsible and be like, if I'm going to keep creating and building things, I have to let some things go. And so this year, there's just got to be some hard decisions of, do I play this game every year? No. It's got to go. Like we got to start making room, which not. We'll see how that works out. Like it's definitely a thought that I have, and it's something that I've had, and I've done that before, especially like clothes or shoes, or throw 23 things out from this closet, or remove 23 things from the game room. I didn't do any of that this year, so I got to get back to that and just hopefully not have to make too many hard decisions, but just look around and be like, oh, you know what, some of this stuff could go if I haven't touched it in a few years.
I also think it's helpful, like all the bits and pieces that you have that you've 3D printed or purchased and painted, all the sets and stuff. I'm glad to see that Andrew in high school has his group of friends that also enjoy doing role-playing games, because I know that stuff's going to be in good use for the next handful of years for you. So
that is true. He does use all of that stuff as well, which is great because he's able to play more than I am. But there's also like a attitude or a philosophical change that has to go through that I've been thinking of, that I've thought about for a lot. I do think about from time to time, is the etherealness of the hobby. Am I painting these miniatures? Did I build this 3D printer project because I wanted to have it and keep it forever? Or did I do it for the experience? And that's one of the things that there's kind of this change is like, okay, the more sane game. I printed that whole town. It looked super cool. It was awesome. I had fun doing it. I had fun anticipating, showing it to my friends, and we had a great time playing that game. Do I need to keep that box anymore?
Probably not.
Probably not. But it's like, it's cool to have, but and it's like, but what if I play some cool Western game? Or but what if? And it's like, maybe I need to be like, no, you had the experience. It's had a beginning. It had an end. Now it needs to go.
I'll take a building for my display case.
There you go. I mean, the sheriff's office is in the display case over here.
I mean,
super cool with all our minis.
I wouldn't ask for the sheriff's office because I knew it was in your display case, but I'd take a smallish sized building for my display case.
You can have the whole box.
I don't want a whole box, just one. I still have our cool. I've decided, you give me a piece, I'll put our cool on it, and it'll just be on display.
There you go.
But I also talked about giving you our cool because you have a couple of the characters on your sheriff's office too. So
yeah, I have a whole shelf that's that game. I've got the dragon and the Tarrasque and the Mega Tarrasque and the sheriff's office, all that stuff. It looks really cool, and that's a great memory. And someday maybe it'll be replaced with something else. Probably not though. But that would be something cool too. What if at the end of that game, like I had just given everybody a building? Like that's something I could have done. Adam does a really cool thing where when we finish a D&D campaign, he grabs a Sharpie and passes the book around, and everyone who played in the adventure signs the front of the book.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like I don't always think about cool things like that, but I should.
It's like company posters. I'm sure Andrew's starting his collection of posters that everyone signs of the shows he's been in.
Oh, right. We've got his posters framed and we're starting to put them up in his room. Absolutely.
Well, nerds, those are our lists for 2024. Just like the last 2 seasons, we want you to share with us your nerd goals for the year. So tag us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Threads. Let us know your nerd goals and how you go about them throughout the year, and let's share in the nerdiness.
Awesome. Well, we've come to that part of the episode, our favorite part of the episode, Analese. What is the nerdiest thing you did this week?
Oh man, so I have a good one for this week. I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm like a wannabe sneakerhead, and I always have been. When I was growing up
Ah,
and growing up poor, I couldn't have the nicest shoes, so I would do odds and ends jobs. I remember doing odds and ends jobs around the neighborhood, like picking up leaves and stuff for like $5 here, $5 there, so I could get a good pair of basketball shoes for because I played basketball in high school. I remember having a job and being able to go buy one nice pair of shoes myself because my parents with multiple kids and we
absolutely.
we did not have a lot of money, so we would get the warehouse 3 for $30 shoes, whatever. And my mom didn't realize that like me and my little brother.
Payless or Sears. That's who you got to
Payless for
choose, right?
sure, yes.
Yeah.
But my mom realized when I was getting older and my younger brother Carlos was getting older, we'd wear out those Payless shoes real fast. So there came a point where she's like, I can get you one nice pair of shoes or 3 pairs of Payless. And we always went like some years I had the LA gear, and some years I had a pair of Nikes that last me a long time. So I've always kind of been a sneakerhead. I've never really had the money to get into it as a hobby, and I'm glad because it can get really wonky. The day I accepted this principal job, I went onto eBay because I had eyed the school colors for Ukiah High School are purple and gold. There were some Jordan 1s that were Lakers themed on eBay. And they have a whole authentication process that you're buying actual shoes and they're not like fake Nikes or whatever. So I got a pair of Jordans. Now, growing up as a Lakers fan, I never wanted a pair of Jordans because forget Michael Jordan.
Right. That wasn't your team. That was a team that came and beat your team.
Magic Johnson's my guy. So I didn't have them for long and I couldn't afford them. But I got a pair of purple and gold Jordans and I wear them on our Friday jeans day and whatnot. And then I've always wanted a pair of Nike Dunks, but I always miss the mark on, because I'm not in that community when the new ones are coming out, which ones are good, and it gets overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
There's a counselor at my new school who's really into it. And he shows up with like, oh, I got these ones and I got these ones and I got the pandas and this, that, and the other. And he knows
that's
stuff.
cool.
Yeah. So
you got a resource
so he, at one point we're standing outside on like duty during lunch and he goes, oh, did you know in the Nike app, you can customize Nike Dunks right now? And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, you can go in and you just choose everything and they make them custom for you. And it's only a little bit more than a regular pair of Dunks. And so I did. I went in and I customized Nike Dunks.
Look,
I'm holding them up on the screen.
To the camera right now.
Yes. So I did another purple and gold and white pair where every element of this shoe, I chose the color. I chose the material. I chose the type of shoelaces, had them customized.
Oh my gosh. They have your school name on the back. That's incredible.
Yep. This was one of the coolest things that I've ever done. And now I can say I own a pair of Nike Dunks. And they are comfortable and they're perfect and they came really fast. Yeah. I really feel the sneakerhead in me is finally in position to start like actually collecting them. And granted, I'm not going to be as crazy, like, with the no crease inserts and like, I'm going to wear them out. These ones, the ones I held up to you already have a crease in them. Like my intention is to wear them out and just get new ones. So I'm not going to end up with like a huge display of really nice shoes, but I'm excited. I'm excited that, every once in a while I can treat myself to some sneakers and I've never been afraid to wear them with suits at work.
Sure. No, that's a look. Yeah. If you can pull it off, that's a look.
Yeah.
And if your sneakers are nice.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Keep them clean. Even if they're creased, I can keep them clean and take care of them. And I've got this little sprays for them. And my next step is there is actually a little shelving unit that you can hold your shoes in. And it's got LED backlight and stuff like that. I'm looking into getting one of those that just holds like 6 pairs of shoes because I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to go crazy with it. I still have dress shoes.
I can see behind you next to the window. There's just a blank wall space right there that needs something. Maybe it's a hanging LED cool shoe display case.
Display case. Yep.
But you're downplaying some of the nerdiness that I know about was when you were designing these, you asked my opinion. You had designed a couple. You sent them over. I grabbed those pictures. We put them into ChatGPT and had it evaluate them, like which one of these is, and we asked it a bunch of questions and it gave us answers about the complementary colors and which one was a more formal versus a more casual look and all of this kind of stuff. So there was also, there was even more nerdiness to this than you guys realize.
I kind of forgot about that. Honestly, I think the question was, do I do, the gold laces or the gray laces? laces because they each had a different look. And I remember I sent you the 2 pictures of what they look like. And then you sent me a screenshot of what ChatGPT said. And my first reaction was like, this guy is just ChatGPT. I can't believe you couldn't even answer it yourself. And then I read it. I'm like, oh yeah, no, it actually makes a really good point on why I should choose the gold laces instead of because of the pop of color and like, okay, thank you, ChatGPT.
I will tell you, one of the funny things is I automatically went there because I will tell you, ChatGPT dresses me every morning. I literally, I have on many occasions, it's one of those things, right? You're in a hurry. It's another like choice you have to make. Like when I was in previous roles, and I try to do it this time too, but it was like, I've got 3 pairs of pants. I got 5 shirts. Mm-hmm. They all go together. Like, I don't care. Now I dress a little differently depending on whatever, I've tried to up my game a little bit as far as like work clothes. It's amazing to just be like, okay, take a picture of my closet. What should I wear today? It's like, if you wear the tan pants and the dark blue shirt together, make sure you wear the brown shoes to complement the blah, 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 blah. Like, boom, done.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And I will say my next thing is now in ChatGPT, you can build your own applets. I'm going to build, you know what? It's going on the trailer board. I'm going to build an applet and just take a picture of all my shirts and pants and clothes and blazers and sweaters. And so that all I have to do is hit the button and say, what should I wear today? And then if it comes up with something, I'll be like, ooh, that black shirt's not clean, but I'll give you another one.
So what you're saying is you're becoming Cher in Clueless.
Is that okay? Tell me more.
So there, in one of the opening scenes, she opens up, she's rich, she's in Beverly Hills. She opens up her closet and there's like a computer screen and she pushes a button and it like randomizes the clothes and then it can come forward. Yeah.
That's what
you are making it happen. That's amazing. You're going to have to get a mounted iPad that's just for your closet and click randomize it. No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be pretty funny. Yeah, no, I wear jeans and a black t-shirt every single day, unless I have to go to work or I have to go to an event, and I don't know what I'm doing. So
nice.
That was one of the things that I did kind of treat myself. It was a goal that I had when I got like the new job and stuff. It's like, I've been getting clothes and stuff from like Stitch Fix and things that gives you outfits ideas, because clearly I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to that. And it's very funny because I feel like I have a basic sense of like the color wheel and complementary things and opposite colors and stuff, because I'm painting miniatures all the time and I'm choosing, color schemes and outfits and things for my little paper dolls in my head for painting miniatures. But when it comes to like myself and what I'm going to wear to actually look like not a homeless person every day, like I have no idea. I gotta use tools.
Yes. ChatGPT helped customize my Nike Dunks and helped me make some decisions on that. But yeah, I'm super happy. I have a pair of J's and I have a pair of Dunks, and now I went like, oh, I can go back and customize some more Dunks. Maybe I'll make some cardinal and gold ones and wear them on college Tuesdays, or maybe I'll make a funky colored one just for me to wear like going out. Like, so I'm starting to dive into it, but it was definitely very nerdy to go into that app. The box itself is really cool. I almost did an unboxing video, but I was too excited to set up the camera and everything. But it's a white box. It says Nike by you, and it opens differently than their other boxes. Like, the presentation is really well done, and Nike does a really good job with you being able to go and just make your own pair of shoes. What's his name? Chalamet did it for Wonka.
I actually heard.
See that?
Yes, for whatever crazy reason, how that got to me, I don't know. But as soon as I saw it on the list, I was like, oh, like Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, exactly. They made 5 Wonka Dunks that he designed. God. I think they're kind of ugly, but
of course they are.
Neither here nor there. What's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
The nerdiest thing that I did this week is we rolled over our Saturday game. We were talking about DM Michael earlier. He ran us through the Essentials kit, the something at Ice Spire Peak. Maybe it's just called Ice Spire Peak. And that was super fun. It took a good chunk of the year. We played almost every Saturday. Yeah. I loved all our characters that we came up with. A character died and had to get replaced in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I really like the structure. I think Wizards did a real good job setting that one up, especially as a beginner's game. Like, it was very clear, like, these are quests you can choose from. Each quest takes you to a different thing. It comes together in the end with a big dragon fight because it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like, it was very good. But now it's Andrew's turn, and Andrew is going to run a game of Masks, which is a superhero game we've talked about on the show before. And I was looking, what kind of character am I going to play and stuff like this. And so I decided I wanted to play a character that was, I forget what the archetype is, but it's the idea of a character that has been so changed changed by their superheroes that they're almost not human anymore. And so the idea with this game is it's very role play heavy and not combat rules heavy. So I wanted to make sure that I could role play this character as very tragic. When I think about The Thing or the Incredible Hulk or other characters that are just so transformed, that's what the character's called, the transformed, that are so transformed that they've lost a piece of their humanity. They're different from everyone else, and that's tragic to them, especially in the adventure that we're doing, which is a high school setting. Is many high school students, like, they want to belong, they want to fit in, they want to have friends, they want the popular people to like them. And this character maybe doesn't because they're a big slime monster. So I was looking for some inspiration for that. I wanted to find storylines for the Hulk, for the Thing, for Nightcrawler, for these kinds of things that dove into that. So I did some research on great storylines for those kinds of different characters that make up that archetype. I jumped on my Marvel Unlimited app and looked up these different series and did some reading on them and things like that. And made my big slime boy character for masks, and I read some cool comics that I hadn't read before. So that was my week.
And if we extrapolate on your nerdy thing as well, is you also did the same through ChatGPT for the rest of the party, the rest of the players. Yeah. We all were like describing our characters, because typically what we'll do is I'll just do a Google image search and find something close to what I'm thinking and use that. In this case, you were able to customize an image for each of us based off of, like, you and Andrew were going off on different artists' names and do it in the style of blah, 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 blah. And you actually made avatar images for all of our characters for masks, which was really fun to do.
It was funny during the process because, like, you put everything in and then it spits something out that is not what you want. And you're like, what? That's not what I said. And you kind of like, it was funny because we were almost getting frustrated with it. How quickly that has been ubiquitous. Like, take a step back. It's like, I typed words into the computer and it made a picture for me of what I want. And eventually we got there with cool pictures, but it was funny to be like, frustrated, like, this stupid thing. I said black mask, those kind of things. It's like, well, wait a minute. Let's be patient.
I did.
This is actually really awesome.
I will say I did get frustrated, and I have been frustrated with AI because it's so early in its use. It is not without its problems when you deal with people like myself who do not fit in the traditional binary of male female. So I think I sent you, I just wanted to try headshots, AI headshots. And I've tried 4 different companies now. And all 4 of the companies I've had to just ask for my money back because they'll take, 25 pictures of me with short hair. I click that I'm female and all the pictures come up with a rounder face. They put makeup on my face and my hair is long. And every single one of them, it's taking what it knows as the binary. And we ran into that making my character where we put in the descriptors and it came up with a perfect male version of that character. And you're like, great, take this image and make it female with short hair. And then all of a sudden it was a scantily clad,
totally different, right?
Different costumes. Like it was really, there were some frustrations like that as well. But that's a different rant for a different day. I agree with you. I also had to take a step back because I think at one point I'm like, I hate AI. I hate it so much. And then I went, well, okay, Rob's typing it, like you said, Rob's typing a description into his phone and it's giving us an image almost instantaneously. It's pretty amazing.
And it's fun to find like situations like that. Like, that's a perfect situation. Like, we created a character. It's not, it's original in a sense, right? We used archetypes and inspirations and things, but it's not a game where it's like, oh, I'm playing the Incredible Hulk. I'm just going to grab an Incredible Hulk thing, right? Like, we were creative and we made it. So now this is this extra layer that makes it a little more fun. It's like, and we were doing it on the fly too. It would have been one thing if we had been like, oh, as part of my characters, I'm going to sit down for like an hour with ChatGPT and just make and eventually get to the perfect picture. Right. We were doing it on the fly as we were making characters, and people got, Andrew's waiting on us like, so what's the next thing we're doing? So,
and I think both you and I, Rob, support our local and not local artists. We believe in paying money where money is due for things that we may use professionally. Obviously, paying a professional for headshots would be much better than any AI generated headshot. We're not playing masks for money. We're not doing anything commercial with it. So to play with ChatGPT in that manner was really fun, knowing that, we're not turning that in for any sort of professional gain. It's just something really cool to do.
That use isn't taking money out of the pockets of
Right.
anybody else. And of course, it'll never be as good, and it'll never be as personal or as professional as something that we would get in that way. It's just a tool for our games and for our nerdiness.
Yes.
And I think that's the right way to use it, and I think it's really fun. But it's a good point to make.
You want to know something, Rob?
What's that?
I am so excited for our next episode.
What's that?
Our next episode was inspired mostly by recent pop culture uses of a multiverse. We were just talking about using multiverse Buffy at the beginning of this episode. And we're going to dive into decades and decades from the horror master himself, Stephen King. I am so excited for our next episode. And
Am I even on that episode?
Yes, you have seen plenty, and I'm gonna give you a challenge of a couple things maybe to listen to before we record, because I know taking time to read may be something while you're back to zero with your painting goal. Even though it won't be 365, I know a painting goal is on there. We'll talk.
I was wondering if you were giving it to me and the listener. No, this is something we'll talk about this offline.
No, the listener will get it. We'll get these recommendations in the episode.
All right, perfect.
Remember to subscribe, share, and give us that 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media platforms at NerdBestFriends, or send a message by writing to podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Don't get scared. We'll see you next episode.
Scared. I'm scared already.
This is episode 45, and today we nerd out over one of the most popular... Wait, that's an old one. Good for me.
I had spent time with fans and friends
and
family. We call them fams now.
Family.
Friends and
fams.
Frams.
Well, nerds, that's our well, nerds, what am I trying to... That's our lists. These
are
our...
our...
Those, yeah. All right.